Well, welcome to the party, pals, everybody. So I did do that little bit longer countdown just because I was having some technical difficulties here. So the camera might not be as well, but at least I'm here. So give me just a moment. Let me go ahead and transition this over. So this video here is all about the 812, which is an introduction to information security. I'm going to double check the chat here in a moment, but thank you for everybody who's tuning in. I'm just going to go over a couple of the basic things right here. This is one of our special streams. I have an exciting thing that I did want to let everybody know about that I think the community would really like. I was going to wait until Thursday, but I figured, especially for those of you who are tuning in, I might as well just leak the secrets now. Welcome to the party, Cybercycle. I see B-Dubs hopping in, AV Showtime, Regine, Lexi Cruz as well. So welcome, everybody. Our meetings are typically on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central. The first 2 weeks of the month, we line up like actual speakers for that. In the middle of the month is when we have our open discussions, which is actually what we'll be doing tomorrow on Thursday. We'll just be open discussions, no set topic or anything. We'll just, socialize, bring up topics, just jaw-jacking, really. And then the last one is always the job readiness and group resume review, which we did get a couple resumes for now. If you did want to submit your resume for next Thursday, then just go ahead and hop in Discord. Let me go ahead and drop this in. So the best way to do that, to submit your redacted resume, is to hop into our Discord server. If you go over to our, I think it's called information, so like info and links channel. And at the very bottom, you'll see a little drop down there that allows you to open up a ticket. And you could submit your redacted resume for us to review on the last Thursday of each month. And yes, B-Dubs, definitely a surprise, which I will release here in a moment. We're all here for a shared mission. This is the same thing we go over with our Thursday meeting. We're here to break down barriers, collaborate, make a more secure future for everybody. It's far too difficult to break in and get a lot of this knowledge, both from a entry-level standpoint with no experience to practitioners even. The information's out there, and definitely as a community, we could help each other out and just make the process a little bit easier. And the end result of that, also a more secure future. Definitely use the community, and I don't mean that in a negative aspect at all. So there's plenty of different communities all over the place. Black Hills, Anti-Siphon, there's TCM, there's Simply Cyber's Discord, our Discord. There's a few other ones as well. There's plenty of them out there. You just got to find which one fits you best, and you'll probably find one that you really associate well with and take it from there. But definitely leverage that. It never hurts to get other opinions and so forth. Now, I may open up the stage here in a little while, or otherwise I do have another presentation to go through for the 812. If you do come up on stage, or if you would like to come up on stage, you can drop that in the chat. It is just me back here, so if you do say something and I miss it, please feel free to hop into the Discord server and at me. That's one of the best ways, because then I can easily look at that list of mentions, or just go ahead and mention it again. So please forgive me if I skip over anything. But if you do want to come up, let me know, or I'll drop a link later as well. Don't share anything you don't want to be public. The meeting is recorded and live streamed. This is business casual. So although we do run things pretty casual around here, just keep in mind that it is out on the internet forever, really. If you do disclose something that you don't want to be public, just reach out to me on Discord, LinkedIn. You can also contact me at that contact@StudyGRC.org, and we could figure something out. You do not have to come up on video. You can also share your personal LinkedIn inside of our Discord server as well in the live chat. That will relay your personal LinkedIn profile to multiple different platforms that we're streaming on. And as we go through this today, just definitely ask questions. This is an introduction to information security, which is the 812. I think it's an amazing resource. As I was going through this document, I was thinking this would be really ideal for somebody who's studying for the Sec Plus even. So we're going to dig into it here in a moment. Let's see here. Our website, StudyGRC.org. That's where you'll see the rest of our platforms as well. And you'll also find our resources page, our calendar, which the calendar is what we're trying to keep up to date the most, and some of the other different information on there as well. Like for an example, like I honestly never really used Twitch before, but now that we're streaming to Twitch, I kind of like that streaming experience. I think it's pretty smooth and a lot of the different benefits there. It also has virtually no delay as compared to YouTube, which typically runs like a 20-second. We're not sponsored at this time or otherwise, but we do still mention the BritWhite.io and Simply Cyber as well. Those are very, very close, and B-Dubs is our CFO. So I'm dropping those in chat as well. And then I'll double check chat here in just a moment. We also have the privacy stream. We just had that yesterday where me and Dwight actually went through and gave like a little overview, high-level view and some of the controls for the NIST privacy framework, which I think was amazing. That one I was particularly excited about because it's NIST. That's every Tuesday at 11 a.m., but there's also an update here as well. Let me go ahead and transition over. It's going to put me on the big screen here. So let me move this around a little bit, and I'm going to pull up this NIST document. And like I said, there is an announcement I wanted to make. Typically, I'll wait until Thursdays, but I'm honestly just so excited. So definitely hold on to your seat, AB. I saw some note in there that you were saying. And then I'm going to double check chat here real fast, and we'll get the party started. Let me see here. Yeah, welcome Lexi Cruz, Cybercycle, Regine, B-Dubs. So AV Showtime does say, leak the secret, spill the beans, let the cat out of the bag, and give away the game. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do here in just a moment. Maybe I'll wait until the end, just because I know AB is going to be holding out until then. Oh, and also another thing that I want to note as well is something else I need to start doing better on is I am horrible at selling myself, and I'm horrible at like pushing anything really. We did talk during the state of StudyGRC about how we're going to be putting together a media kit for sponsorship and so forth. We do also have the donate page as well, so I don't want anybody to feel obligated to do so. But we are a registered nonprofit in the state of North Dakota. We're pursuing that 501c3 for tax exemption. And we do have a donation option to help support the channel itself if you would so choose. I need to do a better job at positioning that and implementing that into our introduction. And that's just something that I need to get more comfortable with. Something else I could throw up on the screen as well is, let me transition this over, is we even have a QR code for that. So that might make it a little bit easier for me to, push that upon you guys as an option. But certainly do not feel anticipated or anticipation. I was reading chat there with B-Dubs. Don't feel obligated to do so. The biggest thing that would allow us to do is do more than what we're already doing. So it's not going to directly affect our mission or what we already put out there. It's just going to give us and enable us to be able to do more things. All right. So then with that part out, I guess you think I should just go with it, B-Dubs? Just send it? And then here in just a moment, I'm going to go through and share this other screen, and we'll get into this actual document that I was talking about. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just double checking my slide deck over here. Like I said, I've been having issues with the slide decks in particular. Let's see. I would like to just share the screen rather than having to import it, and then I'll double check chat again here in a moment. Yeah, we may just go through the document itself. I think that would be a pretty good point here. And I'll also show you, so especially going through the PDF document itself, then I should be able to, we'll double check, but you should be able to see the AI bot that I actually use. Like when I'm going through and studying and reading through the NIST documents, I use the Brave browser with the AI on the right sidebar and to like simplify things or explain things better and so forth. And so hopefully I'll be able to give you a look at that. All right, and B-Dub says full send. So let me go ahead and pull this open real quick. So this is, like I said, I was going to wait until Thursday. That's typically when we release important things and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and swap this around. So like it states on our website here, so originating from the Simply Cyber community, StudyGRC is a nonprofit organization. Our primary goal and focus, our mission, is to foster community within the GRC space, providing resources, making it more accessible, breaking down barriers for both newcomers, people who are entry level, like zero experience, all the way up to actual practitioners. I've heard from a lot of practitioners that a lot of this information is very useful as well. It's extremely beneficial. And one of the big reasons of what built up StudyGRC was going through and just fostering community, trying to make things a little bit easier. There's people that I know who are like specialized in just 53 or just specialized on privacy, and to collaborate together and build this community out is just phenomenal. And it's a huge benefit to everybody across the board. Yeah, you can tell that I'm definitely trying to lengthen the anticipation, the surprise. But so basically, in short, I can go into further detail at a later time, but we are going to be moving into 5 days a week streams. So that is the gist of it. So starting in February, we will be streaming 5 days a week, every weekday, Monday through Friday. Our Thursday stream will always remain the same. So 6 p.m. Central on Thursdays is never going to change. That's going to remain. And then we're going to be adding on official time slots for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. What we are discussing at this time is we're looking at GRC hands-on on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then technical, like a GRC Let's Get Technical on Wednesdays, and then a GRC-related AMA on Fridays. And then we'll keep our typical agendas for our Thursday meeting as well. One of the big positions around this is just to add additional value to the community. Going through these different NIST documents, there's hundreds and hundreds of NIST documents and other things, literally thousands of topics we could go through. And so one of the biggest portions around this is we need community feedback, because streaming 5 days a week, eventually we're going to be like, okay, what do we talk about? And so whatever you guys want to learn about, whatever topics, documents, publications, whatever it is, definitely throw that out there. One of the best places is on the Discord server itself. We also have like the ticket system if you prefer it privately, or you can also like email us. There's a lot of different methods there, but like the Discord's one of the best methods. And then we'll just develop like a list of backlog. And the hands-on portions will primarily probably be around building the StudyGRC program itself, which also opens up the door for the community to get actual real hands-on experience as well that you could put on your resume. But we're still playing around with like the fine details, but that's pretty much what to look forward to. And I'll have an additional slide deck just to cover that additional add-on and change on Thursday. But so Monday and Tuesday is going to be hands-on. And then Wednesday is going to be like GRC Let's Get Technical. And then Thursday is going to remain the same for our primary weekly meeting. And then Friday is going to be like an AMA style. So let me know what you guys think of that. Definitely a lot of value that's going to push out and a lot of content. I realize that you guys aren't going to be able to watch every single day, but the fact that, if it's something you're interested in, you can always go back and rewatch it as well. So let's see. Yeah, and then also Luke Canfield did a presentation on our channel on Friday. He's also talking about how he will be streaming on his channel as well from the meeting that is in person. I think that's this 20. Yeah, I think that's the 23rd. I think that's tomorrow, right before our meeting. Is it going to be in depth? So in regards to like the hands-on and so forth, we are going to be doing complete projects. So you can expect to where like one of the different examples we were talking about is like we could do a business impact assessment. And there's also different policies and procedures. We need to do the risk register for StudyGRC, which we have no problem doing in the public space. and doing all of that stuff open source as well. That's one of the benefits with being nonprofit is we're not worried about competition or anything like that. I mean, of course, that does open up a level of risk itself, but the value add to the community. And so, like with the hands-on portion in particular, like what we may do is like on Monday, we may do business impact assessment or risk register part 1, and then the following Monday we would do part 2, and then if we're still not done with it, then we would do a part 3 on the following Monday, and then on Tuesdays we might start maybe that would be the risk register one or something. So we may have to break it up into different parts just because of the length, because we are going to be putting like a 1 hour time limit on those streams. So we'll most likely have to break it up, but it's going to be like a part 1, part 2, part 3, and we'll go through from start to finish on these different projects. And a large focus of that is going to be for the StudyGRC program, because we really need to have more implemented anyways. So, and if you have extra questions, Gil, definitely let us know. I see you're already in the Discord server, so that's perfect. So we're doing all of this for community. And even though we'll be running off of like building the program for StudyGRC, like if somebody asks, like, oh, could you do a privacy impact assessment, a PIA for a privacy impact assessment, then we could always swap things up and do that. That's like the whole goal and focus. So, and then like the technical streams, what we're talking about is maybe we'll go through and do like Try Hack Me or TCM or Let's Defend, or there's a whole number of different platforms that we could make sure that we can do it, but then also B just go through and work on the technical side of things. So yeah. Like I said, the biggest thing, the biggest way that you can assist in this aspect is, of course, if you like the content, you want to see more of it, subscribe, turn on notifications if you'd like, and then also like the videos, comment, so forth. Definitely hop in the Discord as well. I think it's an amazing community. For the offline community aspect, I find that to be the most valuable, because then you have 24-hour support basically. People might not respond immediately, but then you don't forget, you have somewhere to put that question or put that information or share. So yeah, and just let us know what you guys want to see. So regardless, we'll be doing 5 days a week starting in February. So GRC Mafia, let me know if that thoroughly answered that question for you, Gil. Space Tacos says comment. Yeah, and we could also go through and discuss it at a further length during the Thursday meeting as well. If you guys do have questions related to it, definitely drop that in chat. So I don't mind talking more about it. I was going to wait till Thursday, but I'm honestly just really excited about it, and we already have it all planned out for the most part. So yeah. Let me know what you mean by comment, Space Talk. Oh, comment on the videos. Wow. Yeah, it did take me that long. Yeah, if you guys so choose to, definitely subscribe, go through and turn on notifications, like the videos, and commenting on the videos do definitely help, because the main thing that does is it tells YouTube that, hey, I like this content, I want to see more of it, and then YouTube starts promoting that more. And then we just get a larger audience, more community, and so forth. We're not here, collecting a paycheck or anything like that. We're literally just doing this for community. So we want to have as much impact as possible with what we do. And yes, Space Tacos. So we are moving to a 5-day-a-week stream for StudyGRC starting in February. So that would officially start on February the 3rd, which is the first Monday. Yeah, I caught that after the fact. Yeah, you said to comment, so I commented. Yeah. Who needs a boot camp when you have StudyGRC? Yeah. Well, and that's one of the biggest things is that we're all here for community. If I don't know something, I am very positive I know somebody who does know whatever it is and can assist you with that. So Definitely ask your questions. Let us know what you guys want to see and everything else. That's the biggest thing I could position, because I want to make sure that you guys also get your stuff answered as well. So straight cash, homie. And that's why I pulled up this website here. But now let's go ahead and transition over and start digging into this document on why we're here. Space Talkers does ask, so if the GRC Mafia hosts a boot camp, can we tell people we're meeting with our mob bosses? Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, there's slow ways and quick ways to end up on the FBI's watch list. So, yeah. Someone with 2 degrees of GRC knows it. Oh, yeah, and that's another thing. Malware Trenny, I think that's right. StudyGRC making GRC cool. We are trying to make GRC more socially acceptable. That is stolen directly from Jerry Ozier. All right, so as I go through this, definitely let me know if you guys have any other questions or otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the big screen for everybody. Let's see. That looks like that's as big as it's going to get. All right, so make the list again. Welcome to the party, pal, PBO. PBO just missed out on all the important stuff, didn't he? All right, so the NIST 812 Revision 1, this was published back in June of 2017. That's kind of important because PBO especially likes to point out how old the documents are. But also, I really like the fact that the foundations of it, although the industry trends change quite often and a lot of it still remains the same. You still have those base fundamentals, and those don't really typically change. Maybe the technology underneath it, but the overall concepts, for the most part, on a lot of it, does typically remain pretty similar. So what I find so interesting about this document, like I was saying at the beginning of the video, is I got really fascinated by this. Oh, and let me drop the link to this. I think I have it in the description below, but let me go ahead and drop it as well. So one of the big fascinating things I like about this is introduction to information security. Previously, what I was looking at before is, if you want to get into GRC, I would be recommending the 37, the 30, and the 39 for the risk management framework, how to do risk assessments, and then also running an actual risk management program. Now, I've kind of changed that thought process up a little bit because I think those are amazing documents, of course. But if you are coming into the industry with no previous knowledge, like you don't even have your Sec Plus, or you just recently got your Sec Plus or something like that, and you don't have industry experience yet, I can definitely see this as not only being a really good reference, but also even while you're studying for the Sec Plus, I think reading through this 100-page document would be valuable. So we'll go over the table of context, and then I may show some of the slides that I was working on. I was really trying to go through and build out what I'm probably going to do is try to one of the things with streaming 5 days a week is going to be I still want to provide that higher quality content and so forth. I think it still works very well by going through the NIST documents directly, which is really how you're going to do it in industry as well anyways. But the slide decks, for an example, provide a really high quality experience. I just need to figure out a better process because I want to do 100 slides for you guys. But realistically speaking, I need to condense that down and figure out what are the most important aspects, in 20, 25 slides. So that way we can go through those during our streams and so forth, not 40 slides. And so this document here, I wanted to actually break down in a pretty good detail. So I think I have 60 slides that I'm working with, and that still wasn't enough. There's still more information I wanted to put in there. And I'm going to be jumping back and forth in between the chat and this. So again, if I miss anything, let me know, or just at me on the Discord server itself. Just a second. All right. Yeah, like I said, the live chat on Discord is one of the best ways if you actually mention me directly. All right, and then I think I got everything sped up. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and go over like the purpose, and let me see. I don't think it's going to show it, is it? No, it's not. All right, let me go ahead and move this over to this other screen because I definitely want you guys to be able to see what I see. You guys might not be able to read it as well, but it's going to look much better. And I'll try to zoom in on it as well. It's going to be that one right there. All right, so I am actually sharing my entire browser screen here. And hopefully you guys can make out this document. I'll zoom in as much. I think that's probably as far as zoom in I'm going to be able to really go. But I wanted you guys to be able to see the AI chatbot on this side too. All right. So what I'll typically do when I'm going through the NIST documentation is the purpose, I think, is one of the most important parts. And so in Brave, I'm not going to go into like detail over and over again about the Leo AI. But basically, in short, I did do a video on this, but I put an API key into the Brave browser in order to utilize this AI on the right-hand side, which you could see. You might be able to make it out at the bottom where my camera's over, is to share the contents of the page. So the AI also has access to this PDF document as well. But you can also select text inside of the browser. They do have built-in ones like Lambda 3 and so forth, but I currently have it connected to Grok. So Grok is X, previously Twitter's AI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this purpose and then I'm going to just be like provide list, condensed list format for key points. And then it's going to go ahead and send that off to the AI itself. And then it's going to go ahead and give me the purpose, the objective, the structure, the scope. So this breaks it down a little bit, and this makes it a lot cleaner because the NIST documents can be dry and so forth as well. Let me see. So I think this makes it a lot more efficient, and it just saves time as well. I'll also go through and like things that I'm not familiar with, I'll throw into AI and be like, hey, tell me more about this, or tell me more about that. And so we're going to go over and skip through some of this different stuff. But you could see here, so serves as an information and information security for newcomers and those unfamiliar with NIST guidelines. One thing I really like is they have like a reference section which lists out like all of the different similar NIST documentation, which I think is really neat. Provides a high-level overview of information security principles. Includes security control families from the 53 as well, the 853, which we all know PBO is a complete fanboy about. The big brother of NIST. And then NIST CSF as the little brother of NIST. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. What is that? Space tacos. Do you see what I see? So much information, and I am here for it. Cybercycle said it's probably been spoken of many times, but the dates on those frameworks seem old. June 2017. Yeah, and I was talking, I don't know if that was before or after, but I was talking about how these basic principles, the technologies may change, but the fundamental concepts and so forth don't change as often. Like a firewall is still a firewall in concept as it was 20 years ago. The technology has definitely shifted, but the term itself still remains the same. Just like operating system or a risk assessment, for an example, those types of concepts and so forth, those are just like, as it states right here, high-level overview of information security principles. So you made me think of that song. Which song? This is kind of a framework for a framework that touches a framework on all of the game work. Yeah, and so I think this is a really good starting point, especially getting into NIST, because it does provide all the references, but it is an introduction to information security. And it breaks it down, and we'll see that here in a moment. And so it does state here, so like almost all of the documents from NIST, they are directed towards federal agencies and contractors. But it's voluntary, of course, unless you have any business contracts or otherwise for the private sector. Since this is paid for by U.S. tax dollars, we have, public use of this. That's why I could stream this over YouTube. It states here that it's not to impose requirements, but to explore techniques for security controls. So again, that goes back to like the voluntary aspect. Does not include detailed implementation steps. That's where you want to actually read that 837 and 830 and 839 because those go in step-by-step detail. The intended audience here. So people who are new to the information security principles. The organization describes the purpose. So this publication is organized as follows. The purpose, target audience, important terms. And then we'll go down to the actual table of contents down here so we can get an idea. And so this is the section that I was talking about, related NIST publications. This is on page 4 on the PDF. It says page 14. I would definitely recommend to take a look at this because there are some really good shout outs on here. Not only FIPS, which is I've heard a love-hate relationship with, but you also have like the 18, which is for the security plans for systems. So the SSPs. Conducting risk, the 830, the 34 for contingency planning, which is another good one. And there's a bunch of really good shout outs. I mentioned the 37, the 39, PBO with the 853 coming in, knocking everybody else out. I believe it was the PBO, correct me if I'm wrong, but PBO had shared during one of his streams about how the 53, I'm pretty sure it was the 53A that actually breaks down and gives you like detailed understanding of the controls in the 53. So you have the 53, which is just all of the controls thrown out at you. And then you have the 53A, which actually goes through and kind of disseminates a lot of that. So, and it puts it in really great detail. And then the 53B is for the baselines. The 860, so mapping types of information. The 127 for security-focused configuration management, and then the 137 for continuous monitoring. And there's a lot of other NIST documents. That's not even covering some of the other ones that I have listed, but that's a really good gist there. And I dropped a link to this to the main page for this document as well. I'm trying to scroll down. Did I go over the... I might have skipped over the actual table of contents already. Let me scroll back up here. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the important part. All right. Now, I think one of the best ways to go through this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we'll go through and just touch on each one of these different chapters, and then we could pick a few of them out and like move over to my slide deck or otherwise. I think that would give you a really good idea of what is actually included in this document, and then you could dig into it on your own if you really wanted to. And then I do have that slide deck that covers a lot of these important ones as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely team replay and so forth as well. I don't want anybody to feel obligated to stick around. But yeah, that's why we started recording it all. And Luke's like, "Oh, June of 2017 was 3 years ago. What are you talking about?" Oh gosh. Yeah, if anybody's got to drop out, no hard feelings at all. Yeah, I think we really should start showing up in, suits and so forth, space talkers. We need some fedora hats. Oh, did it? I'm often multitasking during the jaw jacking, so I might have missed that question regarding the 199 for FIPS. All right, so, and then I just messed up and skipped forward. All right, so I'm going to go over these different sections for the table of contents real quick, and then I'll probably move over to the slide deck, which will cover probably a good 30%, well, probably more like 40 or 50% of the document itself. And then just keep in mind, these topics that are also inside of this document. So the table of contents here, so we have the purpose, the intended audience, the organization, the important terminology, legal foundation for the federal systems, and related NIST publications. We just went over that a moment ago. And then we start digging into the elements of information security. And this is where I find it to be really interesting. So like this 2.1, information security supports the mission of the organization. We might actually read that one because that's a really, really important thing. And I love how that's like one of the first things that they have there. Information security is an integral element of sound management. You know, that's an interesting statement. I'm sure they go into a lot more detail knowing this, but when you talk about management, for an example, you probably don't think security right off the bat, but we also have a lot of different things within information security that relate to management. So that's also where, like, GRC in particular is that middleman, but we also have a whole number of different things that relate to management. The policies and procedures, the governance, there's least privilege, there's several other things as well. Maybe we'll dig into a couple of these very beginner elements of information security. Was a good section. So information security supports the mission, the elements of sound management. Then we move into information security protections are implemented so as to be conversate with risk. Information security roles and responsibilities are made explicit. So roles and responsibilities are made, obvious. Everybody understands what their role is and what their responsibilities are. That's really how you work better as a team. That also can coincide with like company culture and so forth that we talked about in the last video. There's a lot of things that coincide with that. Information security responsibilities for system owners go beyond their own organization. That's interesting. So, the information security responsibilities for a system owner, it affects more than just the organization, it goes beyond their organization. I think that's fascinating as well. I kind of feel like I'm going through like potential ads, like just the titles for different ads, and NIST is just like trying to throw in catchy titles. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. I mean, even this next one, information security is assessed by monitored regularly. Like you can make that sound so interesting, intriguing. Get that clicks up. Information security is constrained by societal and cultural factors. This was back in 2017, so this was pre-COVID, and I find that kind of interesting as well. There's a lot of really cool things here, and then it also breaks down the roles and responsibilities, like especially people. I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and like I understood what a CEO was, but I had never heard of CIO before. And so somebody who's new getting into this, it would be pretty important to come to this and be like, oh, roles and responsibilities. What is the job of a CIO for Chief Information Officer? It also talks about information owners, which the stewards, like the data processor, the custodian, and so forth. That's really important to know. And that's also part of like the Sec Plus 701 objectives. Oh yeah, space tacos. Mentioning how we can make it sound super creepy. Yeah, I think I think that also coincides with our ad rules that we were talking about doing. So maybe we'll make some based off of these these titles. So risk executive function, senior management, the CEO, the CIO, the information owners and stewards, senior agency information security officer. So SAISO. I think I said that right. SAISO. I think a lot of these are going to relate to the federal side because that's one of the things that I got really confused about when getting into the NIST documents is these documents are designed for federal systems, federal agencies, and so forth. And especially looking at it from the private sector format and not having any government or military or anything like that experience, it definitely doesn't make sense off the bat. Authorizing official is one of those terms as well. And there's also, what is that? ATO, authorization to operate, is another term that you'll come across as well. Yeah, and Cybersecurity also mentions the pandemic expanded the way IT security is delivered. Yeah, most certainly. Not only did a lot of people go remote, but then also the work itself and everything else. Yeah, sweet mother of acronyms is exactly right. There are so many already. Yeah, as everybody moves through the industry and gets into these higher ranking roles over the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, please just keep in mind that the acronyms are worthless and please don't make any more. If anything, reduce it down. Um, please do the world some favor, some good. Authorizing official designated representative. You also have an SAOP, so Senior Agency Official for Privacy. That I find kind of interesting. I might take a look at that as well, just because this was back in 2017 and they're already implementing the rules for privacy as well. And now you have like a, what is it, DPO for the privacy and so forth, Data Privacy Officer. But that's probably these are like the federal terms that you would commonly see. PBO might know, but I'm sure that there is some NIST or some federal web page that we could look up the actual job titles. That's got to be out there somewhere. And then I just lost the spot. All right, so we just went through some of the different titles there. There's also information security architect, security engineer, security control assessor, system administrator, a user, and supporting roles. The supporting roles is probably going to be an interesting one as well. Now, it's not important. There's a lot of information just within the role section alone. I think the key thing is to understand that there's a lot of different roles. It's not like, oh, you're just a security analyst. You might have the job title of a security analyst, but you may be doing the job duties of a security control assessor or a system administrator. But you may have the official title of like a security analyst just by default. There's no real standardization in the private sector. And that's what I think really kind of messes things up because one job role is completely different from another with the same title. So that's kind of important to realize. But yeah, there's so many different sections within information security and so many different specialties as well. Cybercycle said, sweet mother of acronyms. And then Space Taco said, I like the phrase and I will be adding it to my collection. Oh, these aren't common outside the Fed space. Yeah, and that was kind of the point that I was trying to make is that you'll see some of these outside of the Fed space, but it is directed towards like federal agencies. So you'll still have to definitely understand like the information owners. You'll still have some of these like chief information officer and so forth. But yeah. But I think the key takeaway here, I've also seen security control assessor out in the private space. Of course, the system admins. But yeah, a lot of these other ones like the AO for authorizing official might not be utilized. You could still use it in private space, but might not be. Depends on the organization. The SAOP is probably not going to be, or the SAISO either. So yeah, and there's probably, I mean, I'm sure you guys could probably start dropping a bunch of them in chat too, because like I'm sure that there's hundreds of different roles, and I'm sure there's some government website that lists all of that out. That's one thing that really excites me around the NIST framework is moving over to not only role-based training more on the private sector, but then also just having more standardization because of the NIST framework that they're putting together. All right, so then as we move, we also have threats and vulnerabilities, a brief overview. So this is where it goes through, and like this is going to be familiar to a lot of people that are already in the space, but I'm also looking at this as a benefit to like the Sec Plus. There is great material out there, like the Professor Messer practice test, the SlaySec Plus that airs on Saturdays, and then also the Professor Messer videos on YouTube. But more information, the better. So, and this is also a free resource. So it talks about like fraud and theft, insider threats, malicious hackers, malicious code, errors and omissions. I find it weird, though, to backtrack for a moment, that they actually state malicious hacker. I wonder if I wonder if they were to revise this, would they rephrase that to unethical hacker? Or is there a particular reason why they just say malicious and not unethical? I wonder if there's a reason why, or if it was just because of whoever actually drafted this. Errors and omissions underneath the non-adversarial threat sources, loss of physical and infrastructure support, impacts to personal privacy of information sharing. So that's kind of interesting too, impacts to personal privacy of information sharing. That one we might check out as well. There's this that's pretty fascinating. What I probably will skip over is the family groups. Yeah, that's a really good point, Cybersecurity. Let me pull that up on screen actually. So phonetically, Sasso audibly sounds like CISO, but that's the thorn beauty of the English language. I wonder if somebody thought about that and that's why they went with that. But they're like, oh, we can't. We're government. We can't say CISO. We'll come up with something that sounds identical though. APTs, advanced persistent threats, are inherently malicious. Yeah, go back up to that. Oh, okay, I see. Because it does state at the header for that adversarial threat sources. I see. So that's the further definition on the malicious hacker standpoint. So like the impacts on personal privacy and information sharing, and then we move into the security policies. That's like, of course, I'm sure everybody here loves the policies and procedures, SOPs. So information security policy. So standards, guidelines, and procedures. That's one that we'll probably check out too. I should probably stop saying that because a lot of these are pretty interesting, but that's an important one. Program policy. So basic components of program policy. Example topics for issue-specific policies. Basic components of issue-specific policies. And then also system-specific policies, such as security objectives, operational security rules, system-specific policy implementation. And you could see, like, for an example, like you could look at the page numbers here, like security objectives and operational security rules are on the same page. So this document is not designed to be an in-depth deep dive. It's supposed to tell you the description of it, the actual terms of what it means, and then point you in the right direction. And that's also where I find this to be so useful, because then you could dig into it way more just based off of the information it gives you. And then interdependencies, cost considerations. Cost considerations is interesting considering this is for federal agencies. And then it also talks about the information security risk management. So that categorize, select, implement, assess, authorize, and monitor, which it talks about in the 837 for the risk management framework, on how you categorize and the system itself. You need to understand like what your assets are. You select like what frameworks are you going to do, what controls are you doing, tailoring and so forth. You implement such, and then you assess it. You get authorization for such, and then you move into the monitoring. Aaron Lounge did a wonderful graphic for the 853, where it shows an entire graph of every single task that's inside of the 37. Let's see. So Cybercycle says, "Oh yeah, man, keep it confusing and security in itself." I think I might have missed a message before that. Isn't that a song now? APT. It should be. Which with Fed systems is kind of like a assume malicious intent for anyone that isn't supposed to be there. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good shout out, Luke. Yeah, so basically, you're guilty until proven innocent, especially when you're trespassing on federal property. That's what I would kind of summarize that comment down to. No clue. I stopped following pop music. I was confused when WAP came out and had nothing to do with wireless. Oh God. And let me see. There was another one here too. So like Space Tacos mentions that Professor Roger will be starting his free Saturday morning Security Plus prep course in February. DM if you want more information. Is that still held? Is that still on that weird app that you have to like download on your phone only? Or is he going to be holding that on Zoom? Or like, I'm actually generally curious because I joined a couple of the meetings through that phone app, but that phone app is so sus. Um, I know that he also did a few things through Zoom as well, but yeah, definitely let us know like what platform it's through or otherwise. All right, and then so that's talking about the information security risk management, which would be the 837, where you would get the full detail. This is just breakdown, but there's the overview there. Oh, okay, so it is on Zoom. That's way better. Yeah, because that other app, yeah, I don't know about that. Zoom is much more easily readable, much easier to hop into. Now, then we go into assurance, authorization, security engineering, operational assurance, interdependencies, cost considerations as well for the insurance portion. So also like the degree from WGU is cybersecurity and information assurance. So like this is going to touch on some of those different topics, and it's just going to point you in a direction and give you a better idea of what does assurance actually mean, and give you some different details related to it. And then you could dig into the topics further, Google search it, ask questions, find other related documents, and so forth, and really get into it. And then security considerations and system support and operations. So user support, so different considerations in system support and operations, software support, configuration management, backups, media controls. So like for an example, I'm going to go ahead and like jump to, let's go ahead and go to backups real quick. So to give you an idea for how condensed this is, we have backups and also media controls here. So like backups, as it states in this document for Introduction to Information Security, is support and operations personnel and sometimes user backup software and data. This function is critical to contingency planning. The frequency of backups depends on how often data changes and how important those changes are. Consult with system administrators to determine what backup schedule is appropriate. Also, it is important to test that backup copies are actually usable. Finally, store backups securely, discussed below. And so is it talking about in the media controls for discussed below? That's a little vague for NIST. Typically, instead of them saying discussed below, they'll say, please find on page 146 on subsection 124. Yeah, sentence 3. Luke says that he pretty much kept 853 open on his browser for months. That's a big document. I think it's like, what, 800 pages or something? It's over 1,100 controls. Um, I think it's actually less than that. I think it might be like 463 or something, but it's over 1,100 controls. It's a big document. And Luke also mentions that the WGU programs go heavy into NIST. That's actually interesting. I haven't heard that before, but that's awesome. I think especially in the US, it's just going to become more and more popular even. And again, just as a reminder, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, definitely let me know. Let me see. I'm just double checking the other chat here as well. So we're almost done with this section here for this, and then we'll jump into some of the other topics as well. I don't understand. Sorry. It's beefy regarding the NIST documents for it. Yeah, I bet it is. All right, so we went over the backup section, but so you could see how brief they are. So NIST isn't really known for being so straightforward with it all, but in this particular area they are. And so we'll dig into some of this here in a moment, but I wanted to give you an idea. So, like System and Information Integrity, SI. This is one of the control families that it talks about, which is pulled from the 53. You'll see it mapped over to a lot of different frameworks. But so like the integrity is defined as guarding against improper information. And then like what I'll do is typically I'll go through and I'll skim this. So for an example, what I personally would do, and everybody's different, but I would just go through and, read the first couple sentences there and then just like skip to the next paragraph and then go like, oh, flaw remediation, malicious code, protections, security functions, verification, information input validation, error handling, non-persistence, and memory protection. And that's one thing I like when you have like format, because they also state right here examples of information integrity controls. And then if we go up to this next one, this next family group right here, it says the exact same thing for the examples. So it just speeds up the reading a little bit. But then one reason why I went full screen is so that way I could copy this over and just be like, explain in short form, condensed for understanding. And that's one of the reasons I really like the Leo AI portion in Brave browsers, just because you can connect your own API key to it. And you could even customize the prompt that's on the back end as well. So I actually have it, I have the prompt on the back end, like, oh, give me in list format and a summary and so forth. So like the definition, so integrity ensures the data is not improperly modified or destroyed, maintaining its accuracy and trustworthiness. This includes preventing unauthorized changes, ensuring data authenticity, and non-repudiation. The purpose is to guarantee that only authorized individuals can access or alter data, thereby preventing unauthorized tampering or damaging from system errors. And then it goes through and listed out the different examples of context of the controls as well. And like what I might do, like if I was studying this document, I would probably copy the example of controls. I would copy that over to my actual notes and just mark it as system and information integrity. I'm kind of curious what you guys do. How would you guys go through it? I kind of feel like Luke would just read word for word. Okay, now I'm finding this page again. Oh, here we are. So the section that we were at was backups. So security considerations and system support and operations. We had clicked on backups. I showed you how brief that these are, which just gives you a really good starting point. And then like cryptography, that is one of my hardest parts. I really struggled with the cryptography at all while studying for the Sec Plus. That was not a great experience, but you got to learn it. So then it goes into like data encryption, integrity, electronic signatures, user authentication. I'm kind of curious on that one. I'm going to click on it real quick. So authentication is the process that provides assurance for the sources of information. Using these methods, a one-time password, which is not susceptible to eavesdropping, can be used. User authentication can use either secret or public key cryptography, which it talked about before that. Because here you can see how it talks about public key. It also links out to related NIST documents, like the digital signature standard and the secure hash standard as well. So additional information that they put throughout as well. Now, finding our spot again here. So the data integrity, electronic signatures, managing keys, applying cryptography to networks, so that I would be assuming like WPA3 and so forth. There's also a lot of different forms. And Space Talkers that says that cryptography is so fun. Yeah, no, thank you. That's just a very difficult topic for me. The two things that I found that I really don't like in this industry in particular, like it's very important to know, but the two things that I'm not really a huge fan of is the networking aspect and the cryptography. Those are two very difficult subjects for me, and it's just because the concepts just seem so difficult to grasp my head around. Like networking is an absolute necessary. Yeah, and then also Gil's mentioning post-quantum cryptography. There was actually a recent report that was put out, I think, like back in November from NIST, talking about post-quantum cryptography, and I believe there's actually a draft that's open for comments right now through NIST as well for the post-quantum cryptography. I hate it. You got to learn it. That's the big thing. Like it is what it is, but it's not a strong subject of mine, nor a strong interest. And everybody has their thing. All right. So then implementation issues, selecting design and implementation standards, deciding between software, hardware, and firmware implementations, managing keys, security of cryptography, modules, applying cryptography to networks, complying with export rules, direct costs and indirect costs for cost considerations. It has at the end of each section as well. Luke also says that crypto can be maddening. Definitely not a strong suit. When you say crypto, I also think about like the cryptocurrency, which is even that much further. It's the networking for you. Yeah. Yeah, like the networking, I just have it's not that I really dislike networking, it's just it's really hard for me to grasp my head around the different concepts in networking. I've taken some of the different courses for like the Net Plus, and it's just really difficult for me to learn. It's not my strong suit. And then like the cryptography is just something that I'm just like, yeah, nah, that's for like the math people. And yes, definitely the math people. Yeah. Cybercycle over here is now the official cryptography go-to for the community, by the way. Digging into it for the CISSP. That takes a special type of person. So then we're coming to the end here on the table of contents. So then we have the family groups. These are the exact same 20 family groups that come out of the 850. PBO is currently going through every single week. Maybe if he's still listening, he'll let us know. But like he's gone over well more than half of the family groups live on YouTube already. You could find that on his YouTube channel. That's Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And I could drop that because we actually have a key for that as well. So definitely check out his videos on the 853. Like I said, I don't plan on going through the family groups. I just don't see that as a value add because that information's already out there. And they even have this risk management framework overview as well at the very end. So this is not as nice as the one that Aaron Lounge did, but this gives you somewhat of an overview as well. Matter of fact, I really should actually pull that up. So I have it. So just let me pull this up real quick because it's actually a really great diagram. Let's see. Oh, that's not right. Let's go ahead and drop it right there. And then you guys should be able to see this coming up. There we go. So this is the diagram from Aaron Lounge. And let me go ahead and hide a couple of these things here so you guys can see it a little bit better. And I could drop this in Discord as well. But like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail here. We could definitely go through it one day. We've covered it on PBO's channel multiple times. But yeah, I'll drop this in the Discord channel. But you can see here where you have the risk management framework process here where you categorize the system, select the controls, implement the controls, assess, authorize, and then monitor. Rinse and repeat. One of the biggest things, cool things around this is that this directly relates to the 837. So if you're going through and you're implementing something, this is a really useful diagram, because then you could go here and be like, oh, the very first thing that I need to do is categorize systems. Well, how do I do that? Oh, well, task number C1 is system description. So a document to document system characteristics. You need to understand and document your assets and your systems and what you're using, and understand your environment. And these different tasks, you could actually directly control F search the 834, the breakdown for each one of these tasks here. And so then you could read the task in the 837, and then go through and complete it. And then you move into the select controls, and once again you go through and just follow these different tasks along. And if you spend a good 4, 5, maybe 6 hours going through this diagram one by one, by the end of it you'll have read like the big meat portion of the 53. So definitely some good information. And you'll also see down here in the far right hand corner as well, you have a bunch of additional ones here too that just kind of depend on what you're working on. So the prepare organization and prepare systems. And I don't know if he has his logo on here or not. I don't think he does. This was originally posted on LinkedIn, but I try to give credit every time, but I was hoping there'd be a link to his website. But his website is GRC Lab. So this is Aaron Lounge's website directly. I'll drop that in chat, and then I'll upload this to the Discord server real fast as well, just so that way you guys have it and I don't forget. I'll go ahead and drop that in the live chat and bookmark it. So I'm pinning it to the live chat in the Discord now. Bam. Sent. And then let me double check the chat real quick. Oh yeah, Space Tacos. We went over it on during StudyGRC numerous times. We also did it on PBO's channel as well. It's a really, really great diagram. No way, man. One and done. That's funny. All right. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. And now I'm going to go ahead and probably transition over to the slide deck itself. So I started working on the slide deck itself. I just need to learn how to pick out like some of the most important aspects, I suppose, because it's just not feasible to go through all of it at one time. And this is where once we start doing Monday through Friday streams in February, we will start breaking it up. So then we'll go, like for an example, we may go through and do read through the NIST documents on Tuesdays for an example, and we'll have a part 1 to this, and then a part 2 and 3, and then we'll move on to the next one. So oh yeah, so if you look in the Discord server earlier, I did ask PBO because I did come across NIST website from 1995, and it is still publicly available on the internet. So I figured PBO would know what the old NIST website looked like, and he did confirm that it was the original design of the NIST website, which I found really interesting. And it is dated October of 95, which is literally older than I am. All right, let's see. Yeah, and like I said, going through the live chat in Discord is one of the best ways to ask questions if you guys are on Discord, just so I don't miss anything. I don't want to overlook any of the questions. And then I'll go ahead and drop this document again. And it should be in the description as well. But so the 812 revision 1, an introduction to information security. We did just go through and cover the table of contents and kind of showed some of what's in there. There's a lot of information, so definitely take it with caution. And then here in just a moment, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the slide deck, and I'll go through that for a little while as well. It's very information dense, so don't take anything like personally or otherwise. As far as like, it's definitely not something you're going to complete in a day. Just want to throw that out there too. Like that's one of the big things. Like these special streams are just designed to give you a high level view of it. And quite honestly, I kind of feel like we're going more in depth than we need to. But I'm just trying to throw as much out there as possible. And you can always go through and go back over it as well. And ask questions. Like if you, especially if you're not familiar with those different topics that we just covered in the table of contents, go to the 812, look at that section, research it a little bit more. If you have questions, drop it in Discord and so forth. That's what we're here for. Oh, there we go. There we go. Maybe this will work this time. Yeah, that's showing. Yeah, that's right. All right. Just trying to make sure that that's showing properly for you guys. All right. So the purpose and scope. So the purpose of the document we did cover a little bit, but so it provides guidance on server security, covers general purpose servers. Yeah, this is the server section of it. Server security planning, server roles. Yeah, this is just one portion of it. Yeah, logging and monitoring. Yeah, we'll probably just go back to that document. Or if there's a couple different sections that we looked at already that I kind of wanted to dig to anyways. So let's double check that table of contents. I need to start working on smaller slides there. AB says, great stream going on. Thank you. I'm a student and so wanted to ask a simple, stupid question. How do we study GRC, choose the topic for a given stream? Like today's topic is the 812. So it kind of depends. So like the risk register was community driven. So like last week we went through and did the risk register, which I think was a really good stream and a good value to the community itself. That was recommended from a community member. It's really up to the community member if they want to come forth and so forth. I don't want to just like assume that, oh yeah, they want their name broadcast across, the open internet on a live stream. So I typically just try to leave names out unless I really know the person well. The 850 was my passion. I absolutely love the 850, which is what we did on the previous stream on Monday. This 812 was another document that I came across because on a regular basis, I'll go through and look at what documents, what publications are currently in draft for NIST, and some of the other different publications they have. They have roughly 400 or so cybersecurity related publications, maybe a little bit more than that. So it's just a very long journey to break through all of them. But I do have the long-term goal of literally reading every single one of those documents. So, but in short, the way that we choose the different topics is ideally the community. So if we don't have a community-driven topic or publication or otherwise to go with, then me or one of the board members will pick something. So that's one reason why the biggest thing that I ask for as we move into a 5-day a week stream is to submit what you're working on. Are you working on privacy? Do you want to learn more about this or that? Because then we could really base the streams off of that information rather than just me and the board trying to figure out a topic. All right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, because also it comes down to community. So we want to definitely provide value on what you guys are working on. I'm absolutely passionate about all of GRC. So whether it's governance, risk, or compliance, or a subset of such, like definitely I'll run with it. Like I love it. So Castaway plus NIST documents. Oh gosh. Is that a joke on like, oh, if you could take one item with you on an island? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I'm just going to skim some of this table of contents and pick a couple of them out. Let me know if there's a particular area that you guys want to cover. So I did drop the document link once already. I'm going to go ahead and drop it again. And I'm just going to randomly pick stuff that kind of pops out to me. So like one of the different things that I did mention is that information security supports the mission of the organization. This is a nice beefy section that they have here. So one of the things, like I mentioned, is I'll skim it and then I'll go through and prompt it. One of the downsides with the Leo AI is you do have a 2,000 character limit, which literally this entire section right here comes out to exactly 1999. Wow, that's close, but that's okay. So information security supports the mission of the organization. In Chapter 1, information security was defined as the protection of information and systems from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction in order to provide confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So right off the bat here, they're talking about that the CIA triad. So confidentiality, integrity, availability, the CIA triad. The careful implementation of information security controls is vital to protecting an organization's information assets, as well as its reputation, legal position, personnel, and other tangible or intangible assets. This is one of the things that I didn't fully comprehend as I was getting into the GRC space aspect is it's a lot more than just information. Like we talk a lot about cybersecurity because it is a very large portion of the job duties and the industry as a whole. But there are so many different types of risk out there. And so it's mentioning some of the different ones here. So like reputational, legal position, personnel, like your employees, and other different factors as well, tangible or non-tangible, whether you could physically hold it or not is the way that I interpret that. I'm sure that Space Tacos has at least a couple different resources regarding the types of risk in her Discord. And I'll go ahead and drop that link here. So if you do !tacos, then that drops Space Tacos website and a invite to her Discord server, which is the GRC Audit Treasure Trove. So if you want to learn more about the different types of risk, maybe we could do a video on that. But also, I'm positive. I haven't looked, but I'm positive there's something in that Discord related to that as well. I've seen diagrams where it shows like over 20 different examples of risk, and I'm sure there's even more than that. There's a lot of different types of data classification as well. Cybercycle asks, so how deep will the group get into risk calculations, both qualitative and quantitative? How deep will the group get into risk calculations? So when we go through the hands-on, we will be doing it to the fullest extent. So like one of the very first things I want to do that we really need to do is a risk register. And we will be going through and doing the likelihood and impact ratings for the risk register for StudyGRC. So we'll go through and start lining out and brainstorming different types of risk to StudyGRC, and then we'll go through and do the impact ratings for them for the risk. Does that kind of answer your question? Or and we can kind of do a mixture of them too. And also, I see Gil went through and did exclamation mark. Let me throw this in chat. So I think only moderators can do this, but you can check out our commands at that link. So go ahead and click on that link and it'll show you a list of the different commands that you could do. And if you guys have suggestions for more commands, let me know, because you guys could use that in the Discord server and on YouTube and so forth. So it's a really good benefit. And I'm always looking for more commands to throw out there. Yeah, so especially with the hands-on that we're going to be doing on Mondays and Tuesdays, it's going to be as legit, real world. We are literally going to be building the program for StudyGRC. If you guys partake in that, then we are more than willing to go through and provide letters of recommendation or documentation or whatever in relation to whatever you guys assist with. So like I said, one of the first things we really should do as an organization is figure out the risk register. So that way then we could kind of then move into it and take it from the perspective of like, oh, okay, now we want to run off of the NIST CSF. So now what do we do? Well, then we probably need to categorize our assets as well for an asset inventory. And then from there, we also have our platforms that we utilize and the vendors that we utilize. We should probably do risk assessments on those as well and start figuring out like, okay, well, let's go ahead and run these frameworks like the CSF against these different platforms that we utilize and just start building our program out from there. Then we'll move into like policies and procedures and our what is it, the site security plan, is that what it's called? I don't even remember offhand, but yeah, the whole 9 yards. We're going to be going down that 837 and 30 and 39 the whole way. If we can arrive at SLE and ALE, asset impact related scenarios. Yeah, and that's another thing that we could also do as well is tabletops. So we could also go through and do different scenario-based tabletops as well, which would be involved with a typical organization too. So like for an example, what is our response to our Discord server getting spammed or our email service being compromised? There's a lot of different things that we could do even as a remote organization as StudyGRC is. Definitely keep those ideas coming, and if you can, open up a ticket in the Discord server so that way we can get that documented. I'm making note of it real quick just so I don't forget, but that's really the best way is to open a ticket or drop it in the Discord server just so that way me or one of the board members note it down and we don't forget it. So the SLE and ALE scenarios based on scenario. All right, so we were just talking about how it is already talking about the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. One of my favorite books is the Cybersecurity First Principles by Rick Howard. I love that book. That was one of the first information security books I did read, and it was released like maybe a couple of years ago. But he goes through the history of information security and also how the information security industry has failed as a whole over decades of time and tries to find the first principle. If you look at a lot of the different realms of science, they have a first principle like physics or mathematics or a lot of different scientific fields. They have a first principle to their study. Cybersecurity, information security does not. We always talk about confidentiality, integrity, and availability, but there's a lot of reasons why people do not call that a first principle because there's a lot of issues with that as well. It's not well defined, and it's not always the primary objectives either. So the first principle in that book talks about like a first principle is like something that's absolutely necessary that you cannot operate without. And in that book, he also goes into detail of like a dozen different possible first principles for information security, and then he also breaks it down on why he doesn't think those are right. And that's honestly like the worst part about the book is that it really leaves it open. Yeah. But yeah, just so you guys realize, like that's a really, really good book. But yeah, it was kind of disappointing to find out that he didn't leave us with a first principle at all. Just left more guesses and an open-ended question. Really great overview though. The careful implementation of information security controls is vital to protecting an organization's information assets. And then we talked about the risk, the types of risk. Like I said, I've seen diagrams of more than 20 different types. And I'm sure that there's over 50 different types of risk if you really weed it down and narrow it down. An organization's inability to select and implement appropriate security rules and procedures is likely to have a negative impact on the mission of the organization. So it's talking about how information security supports the mission of the organization. And that is also how you get into how you sell security to C-suite, because you have to have buy-in. That's one of the biggest things a lot of people have an issue with is getting that shareholder buy-in and selling that security, being like, hey, we really need to do this. Like this is a high risk, high impact issue. Like we need to spend this, $200,000 on this software or on this hardware in order to get this implemented because it's such a high risk. Like this could, if we get ransomware, for an example, our organization is going to lose out on 2 weeks of labor and 6 million, 12 million, $50 million worth of profit or revenue at least. So, and that's what it's talking about, is an organization's inability to select and implement appropriate security rules is likely to have a negative impact on the mission of the organization. However, well-chosen security rules and procedures that are put in place to protect important assets support the overall organization's mission. And I think that's one of the biggest important things that we need to keep in mind in GRC, is that we're not out there for security. We're technically not even out there for compliance per se. Like, compliance is extremely important with regulations and so forth, and security is important as well. But at the end of the day, what we struggle with is the fact that the end goal of the organization is for business continuity, to be able to have their mission go forth, to sell their products, to make money, to turn profit and so forth, to keep the cogs turning in that organization. That's the real objective of the organization at the end of the day. And CyberCycle also throws out that the BIA, so business impact assessment, defines a lot of that for decision making. So, and I think it's gonna touch on that as well, I hope. But this is also where, like, the NIST documents take so long, because when you actually go through and read them, then you start getting a lot of questions, and you really have to think about a lot of these statements. We're only a paragraph in here, and like there's already a lot of like deep thought into it, deep rabbit holes that we could jump down. However, well-chosen security rules and procedures that are put in place to protect an important asset support the overall organizational mission. In today's environment of malicious codes, system breaches, and insider threats, publicized security issues can have dire consequences, especially to profitability and the reputation of the organization. And especially with these bigger organizations, I kind of feel like the reputation is a bigger issue. But again, that all depends. And it's really hard to actually go through and quantify that, to actually be able to say, like, oh, if this happens, then we're going to lose this much money, because you don't really have, you can only base it on previous experiences of other similar industries or organizations, but it's going to vary every single time. In today's environment, the malicious code, system breaches, insider threats, publicized, dire consequences. Private and public sector organizations provide both profit and service to customers when appropriate. Security protections are in place. Information security, therefore, is a means to an end and not an end in itself. And this is one reason why I'm such a NIST fan, is because just the wording there, I love. We need to put that. I need to note this down, because I would wear a T-shirt that says that. Information security, therefore, is a means to an end and not an end in itself. That is a straight up T-shirt right there for the GRC Mafia. It is critical to understand the organizational mission and how each system supports that mission. After a system's role has been defined, the security requirements implicit in that role can also be defined. Security can be explicitly stated in terms of the organization's mission. And that's where you get tailoring as well. Like, you're not going to just go through and pick the 853 and just be like, oh yeah, we're going to do all 1186 controls. You're going to go through and tailor that down. You're going to be like, okay, what actually applies to our organization? What is a priority? What's a high impact? What is actually going to affect us? Like, if you work remotely, you're probably not going to rely too much on the physical security controls. If you're a small organization, you're probably not going to be doing the pen testing unless you are required to, like if you have a SOC 2 or something. So there's a lot of different variants in there. Oh, and AB also dropped, never hit NIST anything that fast. Yeah, mentioned yesterday during our privacy stream. The roles and functions of a system may not be constrained to a single organization. In an inter-organizational system, each organization benefits from securing the system. For example, for electronic commerce to be successful, each of the participants requires security controls to protect their resources. Good security on the buyer's system also benefits the seller. The buyer's system is less likely to be used for fraud, to become unavailable, or to otherwise negatively affect the seller. The reverse is also true. So it's also saying like information security is important on the end user and on the server, basically, is a good way to think about it. Let me double check, making sure you guys aren't mentioning me in here. Yeah, and as we continue to go through this, just note down any questions, any other topics you guys have or otherwise. That was one of the sections I did want to go over. I think that's important. And then we could pick out another topic here as well. Let's see. So we just went over the supports the mission of the organization. Maybe we should go over like one of the budget ones. There's also the societal and cultural factors as well. So maybe we'll hop into that one real quick. And this on the AI section, this is also the text that I took from that last one for the organization, which I'm going to go ahead and run that through the AI real quick. I forgot to submit it. But so like the response that it provides here, which I could copy and paste into the Discord live chat as well here in a moment, so you guys could see, I have this prompt set up for like my notepads. So like the way that I take notes and so forth. What does it mean? Never hit NIST anything that fast. If I had to guess, like my take on the never hit NIST anything that fast is, I mean, there's a couple different ways to interpret that. But like NIST is very information heavy, information dense, and used with caution. And so I'm dropping this in the live chat right now, just so you guys can also see what I see. And if you guys are not already on the Discord server, definitely check that out. It might be easier to read there. Is that your interpretation as well, AV Showtime? And so that was on the previous section for, so it says this chapter is an overview of information security principles aiming to introduce key concepts of security control families. And it's talking about defining the information security, importance of security controls, and how it affects the organizational mission. So, and that was on that previous section. Yeah, and like Cybercycle says, slow is pro and the amount of information. Yeah, because I mean, like, there was already like 3 or 4 different rabbit holes that we could jump through in just those first 2 paragraphs if we really wanted to. NIST is known to be dry and very information dense. And in some of the, especially older publications, you'll notice that they have some very interesting wording where, like, it just doesn't really make sense to the average person, like, unless you really know what you're, like, you've gone through that before, like, and that's where you really have, like, if you're reading through the NIST docs, which I highly encourage, and you come across something that you don't fully understand or you want to learn more about, you just throw that through like Perplexity or some type of AI to get more of an understanding. I use the conversational feature on Gemini all the time. You also go to like Google and or take the results from that AI and be like, oh, I want to learn more about this, and get some other like news sources, articles, try to find something on YouTube and just start digging into it. It's a really great way to go about it. Oh, no worries, AB. I was just curious what your interpretation of that that statement from NIST is on the never hit NIST anything that fast. And so then this section right here for information security is constrained by societal and cultural factors. Let's see, this is another good chunky section as well. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the chat there, and this is way over the limit. So I may actually run this through Gemini actually. So what I'll do is, I'll pull the screen up here in a moment. So I'm just literally straight from that NIST section, which is usually how I do it, just so that it's more accurate on the AI. And that's mostly for note taking, but then also just to get some of the key points out of it as well. So information security, that's the wrong section. Information security is constrained by societal and cultural factors. Societal factors understand and use systems, which consequently impacts the information security of the systems and organization. Individuals perceive, reason, and make risk-based decisions in different ways. To address this, organizations make information security functions transparent, easy to use, and understandable. Additionally, providing regularly scheduled security awareness training mitigates individual differences of risk perception. As with societal factors, how an organization conducts business can serve as a culture factor worth considering when dealing with information security. An organization's own culture can impact its response to information security. Careful explanation of the risk associated with the business practices can help in a transparent acceptance of the recommended information security practices. So like if you work at an organization, let's just say you're doing customer service help desk and you have access to like PII, personally identifiable information, like people's phone numbers and email addresses and addresses, names, different things that could identify a person, an individual, and you haven't gone through your onboarding security awareness training. You haven't been told, hey, don't say this, don't say that. We take security practices and privacy important around here. That company culture, which I've mentioned before, is a huge fascination of mine, has an impact. And this could be one of the interesting things that I find with this in particular is that this has an impact on the culture, but also physically too. So like one of the things that I find fascinating is like if you, let's say you're at your job, you have to badge into the doors. Just because you have to badge into the doors, it kind of like changes your mind a little bit. Now, one of the downsides is eventually you're going to become complacent with it. You're just going to act like it's no big deal. Basically, you're just going to stop thinking about that. But the more security controls that you implement, the more you talk about security and so forth, then the more that people just like almost subconsciously think about it. Oh, thanks for hopping in, Space Tacos. You have a great rest of your day. Yeah, and AB also takes the same approach with that statement. Slow is pro with the amount of information. And so this is where like reading through these documents like this 812 is just so valuable. It really helps you get a different mindset and think about it to a deeper effect. So again, encouraged to read the NIST documentation. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and transition over here to my Gemini, and I copied this prompt over. So I put the prompt in here. I'm just asking it to summarize in a condensed and clean format, and clean list format for that entire section there. And then I'll just ask for key action items to further refine it. So prioritize user-friendly security, make security measurements transparent, easy to understand, and simple to use. Provide regular security awareness training, conduct recurring training that addresses individual differences in risk perception and keeps employees updated on the best practices. Promote culture that values security and encourages employees to prioritize it. Implement security tools that are effective without hindering productivity or user experience. So like for an example, when I did do remote customer service, the system itself would not actually show us the phone number or the last name or the email address in full. It would be anonymized to an extent. And then there were some situations where we wouldn't have to get that information. So like if the call disconnected, for an example, all we had to do was click a button and then it would redial that phone number. Or we could actually show the full phone number if we needed to. But by default, that was just anonymized information. So unless we needed it and had a good reason for it, and then like in our report for that phone call, we would actually have to state like, oh, phone call disconnected, redialing was unsuccessful, um, selected to display full phone number and dialed them back manually. Left voicemail, will follow back up with, in the next, 2 hours or whatever it is. So that's like an example of without hindering productivity. That's a type of privacy security measure that doesn't really hinder the process. It's literally a click of a button, and then it's just kind of a pain to have to put that in the report. Integrate privacy and security, recognize the close relationship between privacy and security, and implement measures to protect both. This is still, June of 2017, and NIST was already going through and talking about this stuff. And now they got the privacy framework and all of this other stuff coming out now too. Adapt to evolving norms and technologies, continuously update security controls and training to address new threats and societal changes. Promote acceptable use, provide clear guidelines on acceptable use of organizational systems to maintain a strong security posture. And that's also where, like, when we're looking at the policies and procedures, I've worked at a number of different companies, and I don't think I've ever actually seen one implement guidelines and acceptable use that was actually clear. Like I remember one company I worked at, their acceptable use policy that you have to sign when you onboard was like 6 pages of just text, just legalese. I did work at another company where their acceptable use was a single page where it was just, oh, put your initials on these check boxes, which I think was way more straightforward. So and that's also where we get into like the plain language. So there's a website that's called a government website that's called Plain English. Let me pull it up here. So it's a government website. Yeah, plainlanguage.gov. I'll transition to that real quick. So this is going a little bit off topic, but I highly recommend checking this out. So they have training that's over here, and like they have plain language guidelines. And what this is it's supposed to be like, oh, use these writing guidelines for language that's easy to understand. Instead of writing your privacy policy like a lawyer would, you could take that and then you could reword that so that way the average person actually understands what they're agreeing to. And the same thing goes for employees as well. And I'm dropping that in chat right now. Yeah, and then I think we're going to come to an end here in a moment. Oh, it just closed that down. Oh, it's because I closed that page. All right. Let me go ahead and pull this back up. Yeah, and let me know if you guys have any questions or concerns or anything like that still. I'm going to go through and go back up to the top here and just give a couple more key highlights here. And then this is another one where as we go into the 5 days a week streams, we can always go back over this. Like we could probably split this up. This has 10 different sections, and we could probably go through and break this up into like 2 sections a stream or something like that and actually go through it one by one. So it's just one of those ideas. You guys dropped a couple of different ideas for upcoming streams as well, which is awesome. But there is a lot of information in here. So we're just touching on some of the highlights. We walk through the different portions of the document itself. And yeah, just kind of trying to showcase how important this document is and how it could be leveraged. We could go ahead and select another one here. So like standards, guidelines, and procedures. That's stuff that some people don't even think about. And one of the things that I like to note here is standards, guidelines, and procedures, but there's also policy as well. So it's kind of interesting. So we could take a look at this real quick, and then we'll probably bring it to a close. So we are coming up to that 2-hour mark now. And yeah, thank you all for just hanging in there. And let me know if you guys have any other questions or otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and knock this section out, and I'll just stick around for a moment if anybody has anything else to add, and then we'll go ahead and close it out. And then I'll see you guys again tomorrow as well. So standards, guidelines, and procedures. Because policy is written at a broad level, organizations also develop standards, guidelines, and procedures that offer users, managers, system administrators, and others a clearer approach to implementing policies and meeting organizational goals. All right, and so organizational standards, not to be confused with American national standards, FIPS, federal standards, or other national or international standards. So the organizational standards are not supposed to be any of those international or federal standards at all. They specify uniform use of specific technologies, parameters, or procedures when such uniform use will benefit an organization. Standardization of organizational-wide identification badges is a typical example, providing ease of employees' mobility and automation of entry and exit systems. Standards are normally compulsory within an organization. So the organizational standards, that's not what you're saying on like, oh, we follow the NIST CSF. That's not what that is. It's the overreaching sections of the organization, like so like it says here, procedures when such uniform use will benefit an organization. And it gives the example of standardized badging. So, inside of that organizational standard, it may state that, every door that accesses our facility is required to have, this type of badging system, and our badges are required to have, the first and last name and the employee number and a photo of the employee themselves. It's very high level. Guidelines assist users, systems personnel, and others in effectively securing their systems. The nature of guidelines, however, immediately recognizes that systems vary considerably, and imposition of standards is not always achievable, appropriate, or cost-effective. For an example, an organizational guideline may be used to help develop system-specific standard procedures. Guidelines are often used to help ensure that specific security measures are not overlooked, although they can be implemented incorrectly so in more than one way. So like a guideline would be like, this is a guideline for, like the example they give is to develop system-specific standard procedures. So it's a guide. And I think that one is probably more straightforward, is that it's not something that is necessarily enforced, but it's a recommendation. It's a way of doing it. Procedures describe how to implement applicable security policies, standards, and guidelines. So then the procedures is what, is a really good meat of the pie here. So they are detailed steps to be followed by users. And it says to be followed by users. So the procedures is not a recommendation like you would typically have with guidelines. They are steps to be followed by users, system operations personnel, or others to accomplish a particular task. So preparing new user accounts and assigning appropriate privileges, for an example. So like it says there, like if there's a new employee onboarding, you would have a procedure for that. Like, what documents do they need to sign? What is the procedure for creating a new user account? Do you send an email out to the IT, or are you able to sign into that system? What systems are they supposed to have access to as a new employee? Like a lot of these larger organizations, you may start out at an access level where you can't really do much. You're heavily restricted in the system for a period of time until you stick around for a minute, just in case you're like a North Korean spy or something crazy like that has never happened before, of course. Even though maybe you guys might remember, but there was a company recently that hired like a North Korean spy, and they shipped they shipped the company computer and devices to them, and then they set up the computer at their location and so forth, and immediately tried to like infect it with malware. And it immediately set off all kinds of different red flags across all of their systems. And thankfully, they had it set up in that way where new employees were heavily restricted. So it didn't have an impact outside of that system that they sent. But yeah. And it was because of procedures of setting up that equipment before sending it to the employee that made that happen and possible. Let me go ahead and pull this back up. Program policy. So it does talk a little bit about the program policy as well down here. Basic components of a program policy. So just like you'll see on the NIST documents, this is a great spot too. So like this actually helped you understand the NIST documents a lot better because they always have a purpose, a scope, responsibilities. Usually they'll have like a credit system or something like that where like, oh, who are the authors, who was involved, which is also beneficial as well. So the scope, the program policies are clear as to which resources, facilities, hardware, and software information and personnel the information security program protects. So what is the scope of this document? What is the purpose of this document or policy or procedure, whatever it is? And then also the responsibilities. Once the information security program is established, its management is normally assigned to either a newly created or existing office. The responsibilities of officials and offices throughout the organization also need to be addressed. This section of the policy statement, for example, would distinguish between the responsibilities of information service providers and the managers of applications using the provided services. So that's a really good like overview as well. How many of you guys are sleeping already? NIST is amazing. Yeah, so I think we're going to go ahead and bring this to an end. So we're only a couple minutes away from our 2-hour mark. So I'll stick around for a moment and just stare at the screen. Again, the 812 is what we've been covering. We read a few different sections, including the entire context, table of contents for it as well. Let me know if you guys have any questions or otherwise. So I'll stick around for a moment. Don't forget about tomorrow. So tomorrow we have our open discussions. We have no set topic. The middle of the month, we don't have a particular topic for. We just leave that open to anything. So we'll start our meeting and immediately open up the stage after I do the introduction. Cybercycle says wide awake. And then we also have, I'm going to butcher the name, but Athravan Lockate Athanva. I'm probably butchering the name, but I'm trying. I am horrible at names, but still hanging in there as well. Yeah, I hope you guys got some value. I know that NIST is known for not being an extremely interesting platform to go through and read, but I think that it's extremely valuable. So definitely let me know what you guys want to see coming up, and then also like I'm definitely going to figure out like the whole slide deck thing, because like we did on Monday for the 850, I think works way better when it's condensed down information and not straight from the NIST documentation. Gray just passed the Sec Plus. Nice. Congratulations. What route are you going? Are you going the GRC route? Like, are you going for audit, or what kind of path are you pursuing? But yeah, congratulations on the Sec Plus. That's awesome. Typically, what I'll recommend to people is like the Sec Plus is a really good entry level, and that gives you really good on the foundations and so forth. Another important aspect, it really depends on like what area you want to go with. Like one of my fascinations is privacy. So like there's a company called IAPP, and they specialize with privacy around all kinds of different realms. And so like they have certifications for that. And so you want to go governance with GRC. So yeah, you would definitely want to start looking at like that IT management material. If you have no experience yet, then you wouldn't really be able to utilize any of the common ones. So like the CISM and the CISSP are both more management side things, but both of those have 5-year requirements. There are a couple other ones out there for IT management. I think there's a 2-year requirement for the SSCP for the cloud. I'm going to actually pull up the site here. It does make it more difficult when you don't have the information. Have you checked out the GRC Masterclass? That's a really good course as well. I think this is the command for it. So a lot of us have taken the GRC Masterclass from Gerald Auger, and that is a deep dive straight into GRC and the different aspects. He'll actually go through and walk you through the process for the risk assessments and some of the different frameworks. He has a guest that comes up to talk to you about like SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, which is extremely common nowadays. Especially if you just did the Sec Plus and you have no industry experience, doing something like the GRC Masterclass would be a pretty good jump into the GRC realm. I would highly recommend to start looking at what companies are out there already, though. So you can go through. It is definitely going to be a little bit of a struggle depending on your background. If you have a management background, it's going to be a lot easier. But if you have no management background, it's going to be hard to get that management role without having prior experience. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop our Discord one more time here. So especially outside of the streams, that's the best way to get a hold of not only myself, but we also have an entire board of people as well. And we have a Discord server with over 350 different people in the GRC space. So definitely join that if you guys can. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so if you're already an operations manager, even if it's non-technical, oh yeah, that's still a great crossover. So you could reach out or drop the information on our Discord server, or you can also like add me on LinkedIn or something like that, and we could talk about that a little bit more as well. We also have our main meeting tomorrow, so every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time we have our primary Thursday meeting. But yeah, that should be a pretty easy crossover because now you have the Sec Plus already, you have management experience for operations nonetheless. So now you just have to understand like the IT side because you're really going to have to, you should probably already have the business side down, but that IT technical side is what you're going to have to work on. But yeah, definitely let me know, especially if you hop into the Discord server. Perfect. Yeah. So again, thank you all for hanging out and listening to me talk here. I hope you guys got some value with it. Definitely check out the 812 for the Introduction to Information Security from NIST. I dropped the link a couple different times. I can drop it one more time here in a moment. But